This video was produced by...
The next measurement that I want to talk about with the multimeter is how to measure current. In very much the same way that we measured the voltage, we need to have a common or low reference point. And again, I'm going to attach the black lead to the common input port on both of the multimeters. Now, instead of connecting them to the voltage input, I need to connect the red leads to the current inputs of the multimeters. For the 115 multimeter, we only have one option, and that is to plug it into the left-hand side of the common input port. This multimeter can measure up to 10 amps worth of current. So before you measure your current, you need to have some idea that it's not going to exceed 10 amps worth of current. On the 179, we have two options for measuring current, and that's because it can measure small currents more precisely. If we want to measure a small current that's less than 400 milliamps or 0.4 amps, we can plug the other lead into the 400 milliamp input right here. If we need to measure a larger current, we need to move this current measurement probe input down to the 10 amp slot. Again, with this multimeter, to make sure that you don't damage it or cause any problems with your electronic tests, you need to make sure that you have some idea of the magnitude of the current that you're going to try to measure. Once you have the leads set up, now we need to turn the dial on the multimeters to their appropriate settings to measure the current. Again, with the 115, if we want to measure a DC current, we're going to turn it all the way clockwise until it's pointed at the A with the straight line above it to indicate that we're measuring a direct current. With the Fluke 179 meter, we're going to need to turn it to the correct setting depending upon the magnitude of the current that we want to measure. If we're measuring a small current and our test lead is in this top current measurement slot, we will turn it to the milliamp symbol. The default setting for measuring current with the 179 is an AC current. If we want to change it into direct current measurement mode or DC mode, we have to press the yellow button. And you'll see up here on the display that it changes from AC to DC mode. If we want to measure large currents, we need to again have the lead placed in the large current measurement or the 10 amp slot. And we have to turn our dial so that it is pointed towards the A. Again, it's going to default to an AC current measurement, and if we want to measure DC, we need to change it by pressing the yellow button. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to measure the current that is flowing through a circuit that's connected to a low resistance. Unlike when you're measuring voltages, where the meter needs to be placed in parallel with the element where you're trying to measure the voltage across, when you're measuring a current, you need to place the meter in series with the element through which you're trying to measure the current. So to do that, what I'm going to do is, first of all, I'm going to connect the low side of my power supply to this resistor. Now I want to envision that I'm allowing charges to flow through my meter. So to do that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the high side reference for my meter, and I'm going to connect that to the high side of the power supply. And then I'm going to take the common reference for my meter and connect it to the element through which I want to measure the current flow. So now my charges are going to move through my test lead to the input of the meter, through the meter, and then through the element under test. So this way I'm getting current to actually move through the meter so that I can measure it. In this case, we're measuring about 0.3 amps worth of current, and I'm on the 10 amp setting. If I want to get a more precise measurement of that current, what I can do is I can move my test lead up to the 400 milliamp setting because we're not exceeding that amount. turn the dial so that we are on the milliamp setting, and push the yellow button so that I can measure the DC current. In this case, we get a more precise measurement of the current that is flowing through that resistive element. You connect the Fluke 115 meter in much the same way. You need to remember that the meter itself needs to be in series with the element. The same current needs to flow through the meter as flowing through the element that you're trying to test the current through.